Doc Slab Audio on music production and audio engineering. Welcome to Doc Slab Audio and our 6th Master Series. I do believe this is the first video in our 6th Master Series, Session Templates. This will be a very short series, about 4 videos long, but it's something I think is very important, and I'll explain to you why. Because, first of all, if you've gone through everything on my channel trying to hone your abilities at producing and engineering and mastering, that we addressed templates a little bit in the first Master Series, but at this point it's something that is very important for a couple different reasons. First of all, to really help your workflow and to really help refine all the workflows you've made notes about, how you work and how you are working through a production is very important, and also to have different areas to go back to adjust things when things aren't coming out quite the way you might have thought they would as you move through a production. So basically that's defined. For me, you could define it with more sessions or less sessions, but I think that a really good plan of action for that is to have 3 separate session templates. One for creation and composing and recording, one for engineering, that would be you doing your editing, light processing, mixing, and doing a mix down, and a separate session for mastering that can be either a separate mastering suite or a session that is set up to just do mastering. And the reason for that is because if you cram it all into one thing, it can get a little bit cluttered, and also it can really kind of hamper your workflow sometimes because of trying to find things sometimes. And also, to me, it's just got too much going on to where when I go through a production that I've got a separate creation and recording and composition template and suite set up to where I just get up and go. I just start rolling, start creating, start making notes, start writing my music, start recording stuff, testing ideas and seeing what's going on. And it's a separate area that's totally set up, that's just ready to go. Open up the session and rock and roll. Does that make sense? And there's very little of me running around trying to fix stuff or adjust things or put things in there. Everything's been fairly thought out that I might need or want to do, including anything I have as presets on plugins or FX change that I might want set up for different things I might be doing, so I can just drop and go. You know, it's hugely important because as I work through the production and I've got, like, say I'm done creating and I got those files done, I drag them into a folder for transfer and open up an engineering session that is just refined to do the engineering on it and the things we talked about. Do some light edits, do some light processing, start mixing and get a mix down done. Does that make sense? And I take it into the mastering template that's set up just for mastering. So those areas are very separate, very clean. And if I have any issues, I can have all 3 of them open at the same time and jump back and forth between them to make adjustments to anything that isn't panning out maybe quite the way I thought. I got a bass line or a kick drum or a snare or a synth patch, or just, now that it's coming out in the mixing, it's not quite right. I need to go back and adjust it. And it's a separate area to work in. And they're nice and clean. And also, when you're done, that you can go back to any one of those sessions that are in a separate folder and go, what was I thinking when I was mastering that or engineering that or editing that, or when I was composing and recording that? What did I have? How did I have that set up? to go back and look at what you were doing also, because it helps refine, your production. And also that it helps refine you as an engineer and producer, because you will microanalyze all the things you do and have set up. It's like, well, normally when I'm composing and I'm recording, I like things set up like this to just go, and you just keep refining that template as you're working through productions. And when you're engineering, I like to have things set up this way to do these things. And you'll just slowly refine that template more and more and more, so that you get a nice tempo going, you get a nice workflow going, things are ready, presets are set up, FX chains, buses, whatever you might be doing, routing, anything, that it's all really set up good to go in any one of those areas, and that they're nice, clean, separate areas to work in. And it's a huge thing as far as I'm concerned at this point, because at this point, if you've watched everything else we've talked about, that you're probably really refining yourself as an engineer and a producer. And this is a huge area, because the more you refine these session templates, that the more you refine yourself, and the more that your workflow is going to get a nice steady rhythm going. And you're not going to be stopping and grinding to a halt in the middle of any one of those areas going, I got to mess with this or mess with that or mess with this routing or this bus. Nah. You're not messing with that stuff. And also it gives you a little bit of a breath, that you get a nice rhythm going, a nice tempo, and a nice workflow going, and getting things done. Does that make sense? And it gives you a little bit more time to where you can say, I got this going along. I know what's happening in this. Now it's what's happening in this session. And I can take a minute and, I'm going to really mess with these vocals a little bit, do something different. Or I'm just going to experiment a little bit. I've got the time, because I'm not just grinding away and then, stopping and going and stopping and going and stopping and going and stopping and going. It's really helping you, with your workflows, and getting a good workflow and getting a good tempo going. And it's going to help you refine you as an engineer, because you will really spend the time refining your presets, refining your FX chains, refining your routing, refining what you have in a session as far as tracks, doubling tracks, or whatever you might be doing, buses, FX change. Anything you might think of be doing, it's there in a folder. You just pop it open, you're in there and you're cruising along. You're just like, you need FX chains or a noise file. You've got it set up good to go. It's ready there. You want to add some white noise for some reason in some certain area, and the routing set up. Everything's set up as well as possible, no matter what might come up in the way your workflows work. And everything's laid out really nice and really easy to find. It's not too cluttered in any one of those areas, and it really going to help, refine you as an engineer, and refine your workflows and refine your tempo. That's really important as far as when you're working, as you get going, you get a workflow going, you get a tempo going, and you're just cruising along, bro. Yeah, dude. And you're not stopping and grinding to a halt and have to mess with stuff, because it's just, nice and clean, set up visually. It's nice and clean and set up the way you like it. Everything else is set up really well. You're not messing with stuff too much, because you're going to always come to a point where you're sitting around going, well, I've got this, I've got this thing, but, and I've got this EQ, and I know that I've got these presets all set up for doing this, and I'm going with this preset I have set up, but I'm going to tweak that a little bit right there because of what's going on here, or I'm going to tweak it a little bit differently. But the basic outline is set up as well as possible, so that you have to mess with stuff as little as possible, so it doesn't interrupt your workflow, so that it doesn't hamper your tempo, and it doesn't, cause a clutteredness. It's like my desk is so clean. It's like there's nothing on there that doesn't need to be there. It's clean. Does that make sense? And so is my session. Sometimes if you look at some of my stuff, my session looks like, oh my God, bro, what is all that stuff? And it's like, well, because I know where it's at. It's set up nice and clean. But if I need something, it's like, I need some brown noise for this one ill area, or I need that whatever it is in what area I'm working on, then it's really set up well for me to just drop and go. Does that make sense? And not having to mess with things, create all kinds of stuff, drag things around, look for files, anything. I mean, it's routing, everything. It's all set up, good to go. It's ready to rock and roll. And it's there, grab it, push the button and go. Does that make sense? And that's really going to help you refine yourself and ease a lot of the experimentation, the refinement that you're working on, and all those things we've talked about, that you don't want this to hamper and slow you down. Like we talked about in the last Master Series, trying to get that stuff out of the way so it's not a concern. And as you refine these templates, that you will find the more and the more and the more you refine them, the better you become as an engineer, the better you become as a producer, and the better your workflows go along, and then better the tempo, because you get a workflow going and you get a tempo going that you just keep it on rolling, not grinding to a halt. You're moving forward, and it gives you a little bit of breathing space. Also, you can stop every now and then, experiment a little bit, because you've got more time to do that kind of stuff, to help refine yourself and experiment and try different things and stuff like that. So to me, it's hugely important. So we're going to have about 4 series on this next Master Series, looking at those different areas and trying to help get some ideas for you to refine those and get started refining those. And don't think you can't come up with other templates. You can set up separate templates for creation, composing, recording, editing, processing. You can have all kinds of templates, but I'd stick to about those 3, unless your stuff gets really wild, bro, that you just need to make them separate areas because of how complicated your stuff is. Does that make sense? So you should probably get by with that pretty well, unless you're doing some really monstrous productions, that are just complicated beyond comprehension. So peace, hope, love. I certainly hope you enjoy this next Master Series and our 6th Master Series on session templates, and I will see you in the next video.